Hey everybody, this is our last week on drapery, and it's also the first week jumping into full value, really kind of thinking about full value range drawing. The poses are going to extend into about 2 to 3 hours, and that being said, we're going to try something a little different and really kind of understand the full range of value. So we're looking at this photo of Mike, and the very first thing that I'm going to do in this next video is kind of put a wash down digitally and really get like a whole gray scale behind him. Now in this setup, I'd want you to do this with Vine charcoal and really just get a really light value range going down. You can see I'm going back on top of those values with like a darker color, so I would use a Ritmo or a Conte charcoal in this relationship to my drawing. And what I really want to do is break things down into the first three values in the early stages, and this is how things are going to change a little bit. By putting a wash down, I'm thinking about everything as a neutral gray. I'm starting from the skin tone. And then I want to pull in all the lights and pull out all the lights and push in all the darks. That being said, you can see once I've gotten that value down and I've drawn through my gesture drawing, the next thing that I do is the thing that we've talked about before and really kind of laying in all my value structure. I'm working around my drawing, looking at my model, and kind of laying and breaking down all the values in relationships to large patches of shadow. I'm going to pick up my mid-tone charcoal, kind of have the image of the model off to the side, and I'm going to start throwing in all my grays. I don't want to go black quite yet. I have like a light gray, and I have my dark gray, and that's all I'm going to think about. As soon as all my grays are in, what I want you guys to start doing is to start thinking about the eraser as a tool. I would use a kneaded eraser at this stage in the game and begin to kind of think about how the kneaded can play a role in controlling edges. The very first thing I want to do is hit my lightest lights and think about my edges as a way to control my forms. I'm not doing this on an actual newsprint just because of my limitations right now, but the process digitally is the exact same way that I would do it traditionally, by taking the eraser and by shaping it into different shapes. I can kind of pull out the different edges. And you're going to notice that there's a very specific difference between the soft edges and the hard edges that I'm kind of thinking about. Here's a close-up, and you can really see how on the back of that little edge of the shirt that's sticking out, I'm really pushing those hard edge shapes where the curves are and really keeping it soft as it transitions around and into the back of the shape of the shirt. Going back in, I'm going to kind of repeat that action so you guys can see it. Really soft edges in the center of the shirt, really hard edges where those lights hit those darks, and then pulling out those darker shadows around the edges of those curves. Okay. But I'm going to start thinking about how to group all those values together into the same relationship of form. And while I'm thinking about those relationships, I also want to think about the dynamics of how the shadows are kind of falling on the side of the model to the left, to screen left, and really kind of pushing all the lights to the screen right of him. So even though the shirt is white, you can see I'm going to transition my darks, the whites, even a little bit darker as they kind of come away from that center of light, and keep that lightest light really underneath the scapula and underneath that really close part of the arm. All the other areas of the lights in that shirt need to go a little bit darker in relationship. Here I'm going into the arm, I'm starting to pull out some of those values, and then once I feel like I'm at a point where I can start refining, I'm going to pull in my darkest darks. This is where I'm going to pull out like my Ritmo or my Conte 2B, and I'm going to start really working into the shadow shapes and delving into how to organize the darks into hard edges and soft edges. And the thing that I can do best to do that is to actually trace them, and this is something that I would do even in my own drawing. I will go to the outside edge of the form on both sides and use those lines to actually accentuate a type of shadow, leaving that lighter value in the middle to just exist as kind of like a reflected light. So now we're really going into value theory. You're going to see in the handouts that I'm not only going to give you the step-by-step drawing, but I'm also going to give you a reminder of like what the light logic kind of sphere concept is, so that you can kind of remember this. that I'm intentionally leaving some of the shadows underneath to kind of follow through the form and give the form a sense of dimension, so it feels like that reflected light's actually coming into it. So instead of actually painting it out, what I'm doing is I'm really thinking about the subtractive method as both an additive process, where I'm just adding the darks on top, a subtractive process where I'm pulling out my lightest lights, and a midtone process where all those values that I'm laying in are going to exist as kind of like an underpainting, so to speak, of the drawing. Lastly, I'll go into the face, and this is kind of where I'm ending up all the refining edges. This demo would probably take me about 2 hours in class, but I just wanted to give you guys something that would kind of help to fill the gap for what you're going to be doing at home in the home studio. Okay. Hopefully this all helps. If you guys have questions, please let me know. Feel free to contact me. All right.